Well, a very good morning and welcome to Citizen Extra on this 24th day of November 2017. My name is Wahiga Mwaura. Now today, all focus is on the southern African nation of Zimbabwe, where former Vice President Emmerson Mnangagwa is set to be sworn in as Zimbabwe's third president in an interim capacity until the general election set for September 2018. Coincidentally, Robert Mugabe is expected at that function, where he will inspect the parade to say goodbye. We'll bring you that ceremony live anytime from 11 a.m. as some Zimbabweans living in Kenya also join us in studio later on to discuss that long-awaited transition in their nation. And closer home, Kenya prepares for its own state function on Tuesday next week as President Uhuru Kenyatta is sworn in for his second and last term. We will be discussing some of the big political stories of this week with my guests here in studio, including the proclamation yesterday by the president that he is tired of watching analysts discussing politics in studio day and night. Well, he should also blame the political class of which he is a part of for putting us in this position. And that's a little bit about what we will be talking about in the course of this broadcast. But of course, we also have some sad news out of Salga. We have received reports that one person has lost their life and 10 people have been injured after a bus collided head-on with a lorry near the Salga Black Spot on the Nakuru Eldoret Road, close to where 12 people died in a horror crash on Sunday. To give us more news, we are now joined on phone by Simon Gure, our reporter who is actually on the ground. He's actually been at the accident scene. Simon, sad morning indeed. What can you tell us about this accident? What time did it happen? What exactly transpired at that black spot, Simon?
Yes, Wahiga, yet another day that we woke up to sad news at 6 a.m. whereby a bus that was traveling from Eldoret to Nakuru collided head-on with a truck. We are informed by police that the bus driver was trying to overtake another vehicle when he noticed the truck so near, and as a result they crashed head-on. It will be remembered that the accident happened at Nakuru Teachers Training College, just a few meters from Sunday morning's accident where 12 people who were aboard a electric shuttle perished after the driver was trying to avoid hitting a cow. The accident, Wahiga, comes there is less than a week after the Road Safety Association of Kenya, which comprises of players in the speed governance industry, raised concern about the number of accidents that have been happening between the Kibunja to Ngata stretch of the road. One of the recommendations that they put on Monday was that Kenham needs to revisit that area and ensure that a dual carriage way is constructed, and also the number of bumps and rubbles are increased, because it has been noted that the trend of accidents has been shifting since about 2 years ago. It was known that Tachangwan was notorious for accidents, and then it shifted to Miga area where another accident happened like 3 weeks ago, and then the accident now shifts. The accident has been shifting now to Salga, and now Nakuru Teachers College is I think the third or fourth accident that has been happening. But further, they blamed the herders who are grazing their cattle along the roadside because were it not for that cow that was brought in the road on Sunday, they claimed the accident that claimed 12 lives would not have happened. According to Rongayo PD Joseph Kioko, he has confirmed that police are trying to engage members of the public, creating awareness on the need to observe road safety, and the same is also being extended to drivers.
Well, Simon, of course, our condolences to the family and friends of that one person that has lost their life in this accident, and of course, we wish a quick recovery to the 10 that were injured. But another question to you: what sort of response did those who are involved in the accident get? While the police quickly able to get on site, what were members of the public who are around there able to do? How quickly were people able to intervene in the accident that you say happened at 6 a.m. This morning?
But Wahiga, by the time we arrived at the scene, all those who are injured had already been taken to Nakuru Level 5 Hospital, and it took less than 10 minutes to respond, considering that Salga Police Force, which is where also the Salga traffic base is based, they responded very fast, and it will be remembered that when the National Transport and Safety Authority was initiated, one of the measures that were put in place was to deploy a surveillance vehicle along that stretch of the road, and also there were traffic police officers at Salga were given equipment that are always used to remove wreckage from the accident scene. So the response, according to members of the public who found there and also the police, was quick, and it took less than 10 minutes.
Well, thank you so much, Simon Gure, for that update. Definitely reassuring, but nevertheless, today we are asking President Uhuru Kenyatta and his administration how many must die before the government takes serious action to put in place preventive measures at black spots such as Salga and any others around the country. It is unfortunate that it has now become normal to talk about the Salga black spot, and that is unacceptable. And of course, you can talk to us as well, thoughts, recommendations, if you live near or around Salga. What do you think needs to be done? Because this is honestly too much. We know that on Sunday, an 11-seater Matatu belonging to the Great Rift Shuttle was trying to avoid hitting a cow, got involved in an accident. 12 people died, 2 others were injured. And of course, what we are asking you, and you can see the question on your screen, what must the government do urgently to reduce road carnage? Let me pose that question now to my guests here in studio. I'm joined by Steve Ogola to the right there, my far right there, an advocate to the High Court, and right next to me, George Musamali, a security expert. Steve, I can start with you. Very sad news there. Your response or reaction?
Okay, condolences to their family, but also because I use that road to Kisumu nearly, as many times in a month. There's a long winding stretch of about 11 kilometers. And what I've seen, the challenge I've seen there with fellow motorists is that observing lane discipline is a huge challenge for motorists. You know, there's always the temptation to overtake. And then, you know, there's a certain spirit that, I don't know what happens to motorists, but when you're on the road and people are overtaking you continuously, you sort of begin to debate and wonder, why am I slowing down and others overtaking me? And then there's going to be a traffic pileup.
Up ahead. So you are tempted to also begin to overtake the ones that are slower. Now in that, unfortunately, some people are caught up. You are caught up in that, and then an accident can emerge. Your ability to break down, to slow down and brake is significantly impaired if you're speeding to overtake. So I think let us focus on motorists. You know, can we observe lane discipline? Because how much, the roads are okay. How much can the government also do? Erect bumps on a highway? You believe the roads are okay?
You know, I think we have a problem.
And what's
with
your measure of okay?
I mean, as in, you know, the roads have been improved in the sense that they are not bumpy, they don't have potholes, and that is what everyone was yearning for. In terms of creating bumps, I think if you're approaching a town center, we are required to slow down to 50 kilometers, then 30 kilometers. How many Kenyans observe that? Very few. And also, as you enter trading center, there's usually, if there are no bumps, the bumps should be there. But on a highway, that area where that's Salga, that black spot, other than marking it as a black spot, which has been done already, I think what has the critical gap is in observing lane discipline and having a sense of awareness and responsibility that you drive for your own safety.
Fair enough. I'll come back to you to get more. George, you can come in now. The December holiday is upon us. Nairobians, Kenyans are going to take a lot of time crossing the country, going to their upcountry homes, etc. These are not the kind of stories we want to be hearing before such a period.
Wahiga, I think I'll concur with Wakili here. We can't blame the roads. I also use that road quite often. And I think what we normally say is that accidents do not happen, accidents are caused. And if you look at the kind of accidents that have been happening along that stretch, they are normally caused by human error. And quite recently, you've seen that the vehicles involved are passenger vehicles. It will be a fallacy if we say that these drivers are skilled enough to be behind wheels carrying passengers. And we had the Michuki rules, and I believe these rules have now been discarded. Most of the vehicles that ply along the Kisumu route, Bungoma route, do not have speed governors. And if you look at the way they drive along that stretch from Ngata to Salga, is very straight, and vehicles there tend to overspeed. When you get to Salga, now past Salga, you go to Sachangwan, Jolly Farm, where we have the GSU camp, up to Kibunja, you'll find the road is hilly and winding. And this is where drivers now do not maintain lane discipline. So I think what we need to question here is the skill of the drivers that we put on our roads. We can't always be blaming the roads. The roads have been done. So basically, we should look at the human element when it comes to issues.
We might need to change the threshold of how someone acquires a driver's license.
I think that is what we need to do urgently. Because we have so many unskilled drivers on the roads. You see the way they overtake, you see the way they maintain lane discipline, overspeeding where somebody is not supposed to speed. We've put there the NTSA, they're checking speeds, but still these accidents are happening. Okay. So I think we need to check on the drivers. Serious
thoughts there from George and Steve. And of course, we also hear of another accident at Miley Tisa on the Eldoret Webuye Road. Our cameraman there dashing to the scene, and he'll be giving us an update shortly. And of course, we'll also be giving you feedback on that. But let's now cross over to Nyeri County, where Martin Munene is on standby. He is with the governor of the county, Mutahi Kahiga, who has been in office now for a little over a week or so. Martin, what is the latest from Nyeri County?
A very good morning to you, Wahiga Maura. Sadly, the news I've just heard from Salga, but in Nyeri County, things are okay. And like you said, we are with the Nyeri governor, the fourth governor of Nyeri, that is Mutahi Kahiga, who we're going to be speaking about his first days in office and also other issues of national interest, like the inauguration of President Uhuru Kenyatta. And Wahiga, I can say that in this particular county, it has been a busy week for him. From what we've gathered from him, it has been a week that so in his very first week he had to see off his former boss and his friend Dr. Omega Kuru. But let us just get an insight from him and let us hear what his first week in office has been. Governor, a very good morning to you.
Morning to you.
Kindly just help us understand, it has just been over a week since you took office. What has been some of your key priorities in your first week in office and also maybe moving forward?
Thank you very much. Nyeri is still grappling with the demise of our late governor, His Excellency Omega Kuru, and it's been a week of mixed feelings and emotions, but we understand we must move on with life. So it's been a week, it's been a busy week. I have reappointed our cabinet and sworn them in, and so we have hit the road running. We have already sat down and had we actually have gotten down to preparing our county integrated development plan. It is now, we have launched it and we have started working on it. This has been our priority. We have ensured that we have set the ball rolling so that we can lay down our 5-year development plan and the route map towards bringing back Nyeri on the limelight. So it's been a week, at a very, very, very busy week. After the organizing for the funeral and then getting down to business, and I can say everything is moving on well. It seems like Dr. Omega Kuru had prepared me well, because all decisions he made we did together, and I think I handled much of all the administrative aspects of our county, even when he was alive. And so it's, I have just changed office, moved from one office to the other, but I'm still doing what I was doing.
And maybe moving on to the national government, President Kenyatta is set to be sworn in on Tuesday. As Nyeri residents, what are some of your expectations from the national government in terms of performance?
Number one, we want to really congratulate President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta on his reaffirmation as a legally, rightfully elected president of this nation. Nyeri indeed was he was our choice, and we came out in great numbers, and I think nationally we were second in terms of turnout and the number of votes we gave him. And why did we give the votes? We gave Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta the votes because, number one, we believed in his vision, in the Jubilee Manifesto, and as Nyeri, we are really expectant. Why? we have had a number of issues raised by our constituents, and number one principle among them is that we, the people of Kenya, are waiting in earnest for the 2 mega dams that are being constructed by national government. We have the one in the Aberdares and the Karimeno Dam, and we really are looking forward to that. Nyeri has also is expectant. In terms of the promises the president has made, he has accepted to put up a 4 billion hospital, cancer treatment hospital in Kimathi University. We are really looking forward to that. It will really improve the economy around Nyeri. We think that hospital will have about 2,500 doctors whom we must accommodate, and so that will translate into good business for the landlords and landladies. And in all ways, that's quite a group that will give us business and improve the economy of this town. Kanyagia Road, going all the way to Endarasha and moving all the way down to Nairutia, was in the plans to be tarmacked, and we are really praying that that will be given first priority by His Excellency the President. Looking around, Karatina Market is still hanging and not complete. Chaka Market, we are still awaiting the national government to really come in and complete those projects. We are also asking President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, Your Excellency, as we congratulate you, we remind you that we gave you all our votes and we were committed and dedicated towards giving you votes. As you get into your final term, we humbly pray that you look to Nyeri with favor. There are quite a number of issues. We are still grappling with our coffee not really performing very well. How we pray that national government will step in. We also remind you, Your Excellency, that Othaya District Hospital is incomplete, although almost complete. We need to pray that you equip it. And also Provincial General Hospital, that is Nyeri level 5 hospital. We're really looking forward to a lot of support from national government. All right, and back to the president. His first term had a lot of issues. We saw allegations of corruptions and things like those. What do you expect his second term to be like, especially considering the fact that it is his last term in office as president? President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta must leave a legacy of having struggled with this beast called corruption. We know that Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta is never corrupt. He is committed to fighting corruption. How we wish him well. How we pray that there will be no sacred cows in his administration this time, and he must be decisive and take action. Let people pay for their sins, Your Excellency, President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Let us hold people accountable for their deeds and their misdeeds. Let us promote those that do well, and for those that don't do well, those that have a taint of corruption, Your Excellency, take action against them. Let them stop ruining your reputation and also messing your legacy. You are a good president. We love you. This country loves you. We have a total hope in you. You are walking a clean presidency. Let you work with those people that want to give you a proper legacy. And maybe finally, Tuesday is the swearing-in ceremony. Yes. So how is Nyeri? Are you prepared for it? Oh yes, Nyeri, we must be there, and we'll be there in great numbers. We are organizing to be there in 15 buses of Nyeri citizens who are willing, and in fact, if we had the resources, we would take everybody, because they are in my office, they are everywhere, they are calling, they are saying, please include us to go and cheer up the president as he is sworn in. I will be leading that delegation, and Nyeri will be there in great and huge numbers, the same way we give the president the great number of votes. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, my brother. That was the Nyeri Governor, Wahiga Mwaura, who's been just giving us a brief of his first week. The governor is Mutahi Kahiga, of course, telling us as it is in Nyeri County, and a lot of expectations, really. And I must say, even at the funeral of the late Dr. Wahome Gakuru, one of the issues that was raised
by leaders is the Karatina market. Some of the projects that have stalled in those past 5 years, and Nyeri residents, of course, eager and waiting to see if they will be able to actually see these projects seen through, that they may be able to actually benefit from the presidency of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Back to you in studio, Wahiga Mwaura, and that is how things are in this county. I am Martin Munene.
Well, thank you so much, Martin Munene, for that update, that discussion with the 4th governor of Nyeri County, Mutahi Kahiga. Asante sana, Martin Munene. Now, as the dust settles on election politics, a section of Kenyans are counting losses after their business and homes were destroyed by protesters. Police are yet to release details on the arrest of culprits, as Sylvia Chebet now reports.
What was once a grand house, the envy of the village, is a pale shadow of Joseph's residence in Kondele's Fanana area in Kisumu.
Hii ni master bedroom yangu, hii ni toilet and bath.
This was his retirement home, his all.
Nimerudi zero. Sasa naanza kuanza zero kukomboa nyumba, na ulikuwa na nyumba. Nimefagisha miaka 4 kwenda nyumbani. Na sasa unaenda nyumbani na mkono tupu, na umefanya kazi miaka 36. Kazini nilikuwa nje kwa kazi ya serikali. Na mpaka saa hii narudi zero. Ambaye nasema taanzia wapi? Nirudi pale. Na siwezi rudi nyuma saa hii na hii miaka yangu 56. Nirudi kijana tena nianze ndio fike mahali niko.
One morning he left for work as always, amidst violent protests as NASA supporters planned to boycott the repeat election. When he returned, his house and property had been reduced to a shell, his property stolen and the immovable destroyed.
Kuku zangu ilibiwa 300 hapa. Magari zangu 2 ilikuwa hapa, ilichoma mahali nyinyi naona oil pande hiyo. Ikabebwa tena hizo majuma, ikapelekwa scrap. Hii nyumba imefunjwa, imechukuliwa ma engines ya gari yote, ilikuwa hapa ndani. Is around 5 million vitu ilikuwa hapa ndani. Duka imefunjwa, imechukuliwa vitu ilikuwa ndani. Imechukuliwa mamlango kila kitu kwa hii boma, vitu around 15 million.
A 6,000-liter tank was also broken. The destruction on this 2-acre property vicious and debilitating for Joseph, who has put in 36 years worth of time in building the wealth destroyed in a single day.
Nani kwa sauri ya siasa. Mimi nimeisha hapa miaka 22. Na tumekaa na watu kama wajirani, lakini sijui ni kitu gani nimefanya. Nimekuja kanichomewa nyumba. Pile mimi nasikia uchungu. Lakini tunawacha Mungu.
As the tallying of the ballots went on, a section of Kawangware's Congo area went up in flames. 3 weeks later, the owners are still trying to pick up the pieces. Some have managed to rebuild structures, albeit low cost, just so they can have shelter once again. Businesses remain closed and premises deserted. The community here still afraid to even voice their tribulations for fear of reprisals. This was one of the most popular entertainment joints around. It was vandalized as the fire raged towards it, but firefighters arrived on time to save the building. It's the second time this bar is being swept clean. The first incidents came knocking during the deadly post-election violence of 2007. It's a relief that a highly divisive political season is drawing to an end. But it's those Kenyans whose houses and businesses were torched or destroyed that know how terrible, how painful, how costly tribal animosity and political intolerance really is.
Saa hii naomba mahali ya kulala kutoka kwa nyumba yangu.
Sylvia Chebet, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Thank you.
And on that same note, Kisumu Governor Professor Anyang' Nyong'o has weighed in on the demo aftermath debate. He spoke to radio journalists on Wednesday in Kisumu County, stating that no demos will be sanctioned unless they've been called for by the National Super Alliance in Kisumu County. And if anyone attempts to hold a demo without the approval, of course, of the National Super Alliance in Kisumu County, then the police should deal with them because what they're doing is an illegality. Let's listen just a little bit to what he had to say on Wednesday.
Governor, an ODM NASA governor in this county, who has not said that people should demonstrate, and somebody decides that they're going to block roads, which is a criminal act. It's not demonstration. Somebody decides when they block roads, they take money from people, rob women and our own people and our visitors. Somebody decides they're going to go break into a shop, like the case of Mike Mutua that I told you about. Criminal acts. So what we are saying today, and I'm going to say it in Luo, is that one, anybody demonstrating in Kisumu County will only demonstrate when the party says so. Secondly, and anybody using demonstration to block roads is committing a criminal offense, and the police will deal with such a person accordingly. You see anybody putting stones on the road, deal with them. Preemptive action. Anybody molesting a citizen or a dweller, somebody resides in Kisumu, in the name of will be treated as a criminal.
Do not block roads, do not disturb others, carry out your demos peacefully. If not, the police will deal with you. Strong message there by Governor Anyang' Nyong'o. Let's cross over now straight to Kisumu County, and that's before I engage my guest here in studio and get an update from Laura Otieno. Laura, a reaction to those words by the governor?
Well, thank you very much, Wahiga, back at the Communication Center. And here in Kisumu, basically to get a reaction by the governor, by that statement by the governor on Wednesday, I'm joined by various stakeholders in the greater Kisumu business fraternity. One of them is Mr. Israel Agina, who represents the Kisumu Business Coalition. And maybe if you could tell us, we have seen the governor come out to defend the interest of the business community. Case in study, when during the Jumwe Hotel incident, he issued a directive to hoteliers to basically be cautious in the way they are operating their businesses. And on Wednesday, he called upon the police to take charge of people who are engaging in criminal activities, including the disruption of people's businesses. How do you feel concerning that? Is the county government protecting the interests of the business community, and how are they doing that?
Thank you very much, Laura. The Kisumu Business Coalition is quite happy with the directive given by the governor, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, that if there are to be any demonstrations, they must be led by credible organizations or people, and that no demonstrations will be held without proper planning, because disruption of business, disruption of traffic is not going to be allowed in Kisumu, because it affects the businesses, the investors, and the people who are on transit between Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Southern Sudan.
Well, 2017 has been quite a politically charged year, and you have been a businessman for 13 years. I mean, comparatively, how is the business atmosphere this year compared to maybe 2007, 2013?
The destruction that we witnessed in 2007, 2008 was rather concentrated and short, but the effect of political campaigns and elections this year has been very long. It has taken over 8 months. Most of our hotels have been half empty. The hotel occupancy has been low. The businesses, the sugar millers and maize millers, have not been able to either access their raw materials or send out their finished products to the markets as they wished. And this has affected employment as well, because we know of several hotels who have had to lay off some of their workers to just wait for normalcy to resume.
Wahiga, that is Mr. Israel Agina, who's basically talking about the business situation here in Kisumu. And because of time, we will not join Mr. Anthony, but of course we will be talking to him later on to be telling us what the situation of the micro and small enterprises which he represents has been, especially this year. But in a nutshell, that is what, according to the business fraternity here in Kisumu County, feel that they have been registering very low returns, especially this year. And of course, we'll be talking to them, of course, about their projections on how long it will take for business to stabilize in the county. Wahiga.
Well, thank you so much, Laura Otieno, for bringing us that bit of update there from Israel Agina, speaking on behalf of business owners in Kisumu County. You also have someone there who later on will tell us a little bit about how SMEs have fared in 2017, a very busy election year for the country. And Laura, will come back to you in just a bit. Let me now introduce more of my guests here in studio. I believe the panel is a little bit more balanced than it was when we first started. Mary Kamau joins us. She's a media consultant. Mary Mwangi, beg your pardon, joins us. She's a media consultant. Karibu.
Asante.
Thank you. I guess I got a bit confused, that whole balance statement as well. Sandra Ochola, a political analyst. Welcome.
Thank you.
Many thanks indeed. Let me start with you, George. Your take on what you've heard. Sylvia Chebet told us a little bit about the aftermath of demos across the country. You've heard what the governor has had to say. You've heard what one or two business owners in Kisumu have had to say. Your strength is in security, but maybe you can just weigh in a little bit on all their sentiments.
I think what we need to know is that we need to start. There is a conflict in this country. And before we address how we're going to solve this problem, we need to understand the genesis of all this. We've witnessed violence in parts of Nyanza, Western, and even Nairobi. And this is during an election year. So for us to understand, we need to know what is happening, what causes conflict during an election. And we have 4 elements in this. And the first one is voters in conflict with the government. And this is when the voters feel that they are being disenfranchised by the government and that the voting process was not free and fair. And then we have the government in conflict with the voters, when the government feels that the voters are involved in acts that are unlawful. And this is when now the government will send out the police to deal with the voters. And then number 3 is when the contestants are in conflict with each other. And then finally number 4 is a combination of the 3. This is now what we are facing as a country. And what we've witnessed in Kisumu is that there is a lot of destruction of property. And this is not the first time we're witnessing this. It has been happening since 1992, when Kenya went multi-party. We've had issues where people are populations are being moved from their areas of residence for political reasons. And it has been with us all these years up to 2017. We're still witnessing the same trend. So I think what ails this country is more than what we're talking about, we are discussing, and I think much more needs to be done, because our kind of politics is zero-sum, whereby the winner
takes all approach.
Takes all, and then if you are the loser, you get nothing. I think that concept is what we need to change.
I'll come back to you to get your expectations from protesters moving forward, and expectations from the police, because I believe you also have some suggestions on what they can do moving forward to reduce the number of the amount of conflict that we see on a day of demos. But Mary, I can come to you now and give you a chance to weigh in on this as well.
Well, what George is pointing out is very true. The zero-sum game makes a lot of people feel that they're not part of the process, they're not part of the system, that they do not benefit from the system. But I was privy to a conversation with an investment secretary from one of the county governments. And what we're seeing now is a lot of leadership in county government realizing that that is where first and foremost power lies when you are dealing with grassroots politics. And what they're trying to do in this particular county is modernize it, and this county literally has virgin territory, so anything is possible, and they are dreaming big. They're thinking Dubai style, China style, and that is what we want to see, so that we stop younger Kenyans feeling that they're not part and parcel of the system, that they do not have access to jobs or access to better housing, because we all feel that we must congregate in the big cities. And I mean, look at even what's happened in terms of the people who've come back. Half the governors didn't make it back. Half the members of parliament didn't make it back. So it means that a lot of people realize that they are accountable to the people right now in terms of leadership. And the voters also realize the power of their vote.
And you think that is what brought Governor Nyong'o out to make such a strong statement?
I am very glad to hear him speak like that. And also the Nyeri governor as well, who are calling upon leadership to ensure that there will no longer be golden cows. That was the Nyeri governor's statement. Then you have Governor Anyang' Nyong'o saying no more demos that will create chaos and the kind of loss that we are seeing. The gentleman who lost literally everything he's worked for over 37 years.
Were you surprised when the governor said that? Sometimes I'm in my office and I hear that there's a demo happening somewhere. I mean, what did that sound like to you?
It sounds like, you know, there are different forces at play in that area. That leadership says one thing and people on the ground feel something totally different. As George pointed out, you've got that strata, the tiers, where people are feeling that leadership is not accountable and leadership is at, you know, war, so to speak, with the people, the voters. And so that has created that tension where people feel if my leaders are not going to do anything, then I will take action.
Steve, let me come to you. You've heard what the governor had to say in law. What can he do? What can he not do? Are those just empty proclamations, or does he have the backing to be able to make such a statement?
Well, at best, this is an open display of ignorance. At worst, this is impunity. The governor should not lie to the residents of Kisumu that he has any powers to control how people demonstrate or picket. Clearly, he's out of touch with the law on freedom of assembly and association. However well-intentioned he may have been, he can't assume a posture that purports to direct residents that he cannot ban demos and he cannot transfer them from Kisumu to Nairobi. No governor has such powers. In fact, it indicates the doublespeak. I'm sure if it was the governor of Nairobi banning demos, Nyong'o himself would be up in arms condemning his colleague and NASA Brigade. They would be waiving the sanctity of the Constitution and says the freedom of assembly and association under Article 37 is sacrosanct. It cannot be interfered with unless in the manner in which is provided under the Constitution, because Article 24(3) says anybody who seeks to limit a right significantly in a manner that takes away a central aspect of that right need to demonstrate to the High Court reasonable justification why the High Court should allow, not through your own personal discretion, why the High Court should allow that kind of limitation. And in the context of picketing, the governor has no role at all. Security management is a national function. We have regional coordinators, the police.
And he's not.
I'm not. The intention is good.
Okay, so you're not questioning the intention at all.
What we are clarifying is this: he cannot purport to issue directions that assume powers that has not been allocated to him by the law. He can't do that.
Can he go to the court to get some sort of backing?
Any Kenyan, even here in Nairobi, any Kenyan, you and I can go to court and say demonstrations are happening in my area of work, and I find that these demonstrations are now becoming too disruptive, and chaotic, and they don't match the legitimate expectation under the Constitution, and the court will pronounce itself in terms of framing the context and the scope in which people can demonstrate. So yes, what Nyong'o should have done is to appeal. I think that's a better word, to appeal to Kisumu residents.
Maybe that was how he was appealing.
He was not.
We all have different ways.
No. So I think we must correct that. So let Kisumu residents not think that they can be ordered around with Governor Nyong'o on when to demonstrate, how to demonstrate. That is not his role. Let him concern himself with service delivery. That is what he was elected to do. Okay. But more importantly,
briefly,
problems and perspectives. Now, what you have seen in terms of problems, that the political class, they think that they can define the space in which all of us live and operate. So when they say demonstrate, you must comply. When they say stop, you must stop. When they say go left, you go left, without caring whether whatever they are doing has legal and constitutional backing or not. So that's just a lack of common decency within our political class, and a lack of a matching culture that can complement or what the Constitution has ordained. But also the question of morality, because morality now touches on the people. Are we really aware about the new shifts in the law? Or are we just saying that, yes, we have a right to demonstrate, we'll go out there without even assuming our own responsibilities in terms of how we exercise these roles? And I want to include the National Commission, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, IPOA, and other state commissions and agencies. What is their role? When Kenyans are demonstrating...
You've asked several questions. You'll allow me to interrupt you so I can give you to the panelists a chance to weigh in, because our time is almost up. Sandra, you can now come in. He's asked several questions, but I know you also have a comment on what each of our panelists have had to say.
True. And for me, the ensuing situation, it has very little to do with demonstrations. We are a generally very irresponsible and indisciplined lot as far as exercising our right to demonstrations are concerned, as far as exercising our right to freedom of association and picketing and whatnot. What we are seeing now, the aftermaths of the various kinds of violence. We have state-perpetrated violence, which we've talked about severally, as regards the role of police during the political period. Then you have politically instigated violence, which is now coming through the political parties. Then now you have this other category of violence where you have the militia. And this is something that you've seen all along, where during a political period, there are certain groups we condone to further particular interests during the political period. And you've seen Mungiki and each Sungu, a good number of them from all communities. These are groups that we have allowed to flourish during political period. So one, you have the government side that has rules and structures where the individuals are remunerated, and they have ways and means in which they operate. You have the political structure as well, where now you have politicians. They've already moved to a point where they've moved on from the demonstrations and they're going on with other things. But then now you have this lot, which depending on how they are facilitated or depending on how they operated during that time, these are young men and women. They still need to eat, they still need to work, they still need to get a source of living. So for them, they continue to thrive. And the problem is they're thriving within an environment which now promotes lawlessness. They're thriving within an environment which now promotes various violations of human rights. So it has, at this point, I think we've moved so far from the demonstrations and police brutality and whatnot. The issue now that most people are dealing with is the aftermath. And how do we deal with these groups that manage to flourish during the political period? We manage to condone them during this time. And so that calls for, as the governor is saying, what measures are you putting around? If you're going to deal with a militia in Kisumu, which is now not operating on demonstrations anymore, they're causing roadblocks, they're robbing people, that's a criminal organization. So you deal with it as that.
Okay, and we just want to clarify that the governor has not banned demos, and that's why we played that bite for you. He actually said that there is a way in which demos are called for and carried out, and anything outside of that is illegal, and the police should deal with that. So just to clarify, and maybe we can just listen to him one more time, just so that we don't have any misunderstanding. He has not banned demos. He has rather said there's a way they should be called for and carried out, and if anyone does a demo beyond or outside the scope of the law, then they should be dealt with by the police. Let's just listen in one last time.
An ODM NASA governor in this county who has not said that people should demonstrate, and somebody decides that they're going to block roads, which is a criminal act. It's not demonstration. Somebody decides when they block roads, they take money from people, rob women and our own people and our visitors. Somebody decides they're going to go break into a shop, like the case of Mike Mutua that I told you about. Criminal acts. So what we are saying today, and I'm going to say it in Luo, is that one, anybody demonstrating in Kisumu County will only demonstrate when the party says so. Secondly, and anybody using demonstration to block roads is committing a criminal offense, and the police will deal with such a person accordingly. You see anybody putting stones on the road, deal with them. Preemptive action. Anybody molesting a citizen or a dweller, somebody resides in Kisumu, in the name of will be treated as a criminal.
George, let me come to you at this time, our security expert here. Expectations from demonstrators in terms of what are their responsibilities even as they go out to demo, but on the flip side, your expectations from the police. I'm sure you've had a chance to observe how police in other nations oversee, manage demos, and you've seen what we've seen in Nairobi. We've seen police throwing stones at some point, among other things. So but you can weigh in on this now.
Wahiga, one thing we need to accept is that what Nyong'o is saying, he's accepting, in other words, that they are no longer in charge of these demos. It has taken a life of its own. And I remember on 26th, before we went for the re-elections, the party leader himself told the youth in NASA strongholds not to go out and demonstrate, but remain indoors, but boycott voting. But we witnessed that the young men got out. They went, blocked roads, they destroyed property. They are no longer listening to their leaders. And this is what Nyong'o is actually talking about here. So what is happening is that even the violence in Kawangware, we had youth that claimed to be pro-government. They came out and said that we are protecting the government from these protesters. And we lost life there, property was lost. So in essence, what we are looking at is a situation that is going to get out of hand. As she has put it, we have people that are taking advantage of the situation as it is right now. And we're not going to see an end of this very soon because we've cultivated that culture of violence. We have a radicalized youth and we have a police service that does not know how to play its role when it comes to dealing with demonstrations.
What is it in terms of knowing how to play their role? You said they don't know how to play their role.
They don't know how to play their role. The law is very clear that Kenyans have a right to picket, Kenyans have a right to demo according to Act 37 of the Constitution. And what needs to happen is that the organizers of these demonstrations need to notify the police. And the two need to come up with a workable plan on how to make sure that the demonstrations are peaceful. And if the police have provided security and it gets to a point where they believe for security reasons, because nowadays we've taken political reasons and tagged them with security reasons. For example, last Friday, we were told that there were security concerns as to why people should not go to JKIA and welcome Honorable Raila Odinga. But I saw that the reason for doing this, for stopping the demonstrations, for stopping the procession, was actually political. And this is why there was a lot of...
That's your interpretation?
That is my interpretation from where I sit. And that is why there was a lot of resistance from the people. So what normally is supposed to happen is that the police are supposed to provide security to the demonstrators. And when it gets to a point where they feel for security reasons, these demos are going to turn violent, then the procedure is they're supposed to proclaim the demonstrations as now illegal. And this must be done by a police officer above the rank of an inspector, and it should be done in a language that the people understand. And then he should order the people to disperse peacefully.
Okay. Mary, let me bring you into this now. As we get closer to 2018, it's actually just around the corner.
Yes.
Will Kenyans need to have an honest conversation about all the young people that we've seen very busy, very engaged during this political year? On both sides of the political divide, we saw that when the Supreme Court gave out its judgment, within minutes, we saw young people from different parts of the country, at least Jubilee strongholds, pouring out. Where are their jobs? Were they able to go to the employers and say, hey, I need to go and celebrate on the streets? If not, what have they been up to? So we have an economy that clearly is in trouble getting into 2018. We also have a lot of young people who have been, would I say, gainfully engaged to some extent because of the political season. What's going to happen to them?
Well, taking it from what Sandra pointed out, that we have created these militias for political reasons. Therefore, we created a monster. And we feed this monster every 5 years. So we have these militias going about their business every 5 years, and then they're left high and dry. The economic situation is systemic. Everything is concentrated in the center. So we want to see that centering moving towards our counties so that we can create an environment where people do not have to leave their counties to come to the big cities and then live in abject poverty and then get told by politicians that the reason why you're where you are is because of people up in that big office. So we need people first and foremost, especially young people, to think beyond their leadership. There was a lady yesterday, Rose Odengo, on Ann Kiguta's show, who said it is time for the people to take charge, for them to set the agenda rather than politicians setting the agenda for them. And I feel that's a very powerful statement. People need to understand the power of the vote. People need to understand who these people are that they voted in. I was very glad, and I keep repeating this, that the governor of Nyeri said what he said insofar as the golden cows are concerned.
No more sacred cows.
Exactly, those sacred cows. So I'm talking biblical. But the point is, we want to see our youth gainfully employed. Because remember, Kenya is not about just us right now. We're going to leave it to a new generation. And they're going to ask us what we did. And if we allow things to carry on the way they have carried on, I do not see things looking very bright.
Okay. Steve, Mary has spoken about the economy and her concerns that, you know, in terms of what sort of effect it will have moving into 2018. You have, however, on many occasions expressed fears that as much as Kenyans say that they love the law and they respect it, but the political class always use the law to their advantage. When it works for them, they're okay with it. When it doesn't, they're not okay with it. I had interrupted you during your past comment. I can give you a chance now just to finish your thoughts.
Yeah, I think Waiga, part of the challenges now that we have is that there's a disjunction, serious disjunction between what the law has ordained and the practice of that law. And this affects the political class, and the supporters have taken cue. You know, ordinarily, in our own usual lives, outside the political spaces, Kenyans try as much as it depends on them to operate within the law. And people don't resist lawful authority. Most of the time. But because politicians, strangely in Kenya, they believe that they are immune to legal processes, you know, and that the law is not the law until the law works for them. And the manner in which they capture what they want is that mobilizing the support base. So if you match that impunity by the political elite to manipulate, there's that impunity of outright disregard for the law. Then there is also manipulation of the law. where you do something that is referenced in the law, but the manner in which you're articulating your issue clearly undermines the very essence of that provision. Be it demonstration, be it agitation for reform. We saw that in Jubilee with the election reform, with the electoral laws. We saw that with NASA in terms of the way they are managing demonstrations. All of us decried use of excessive police force, use of excessive force by police. But we also said you also have an opportunity to, for instance, by way of example, postpone the demos, go to court as they finally did, extract an order so that everybody can waive the sanctity of a court order. So there is that aspect of manipulating the law. But then there's also the other third layer, which now involves the citizen, that in the political spaces, Kenyans somehow become impervious to reason, that you can't see for yourself and you can't think for yourself, and certainly you can't act for yourself, that your actions are conditioned within the political space that the politicians have defined for you. So that if, for instance, by way of example, all of us know that the predictable pathway set within the Constitution is that the reason why there's going to be a swearing in, it is the swearing in of the president-elect, which means there must have been an election, and if the election was contested, as it were, the Supreme Court gave its own opinion validating that election, and in essence, bringing to a closure the legal process or the electoral process. But Kenyans are believing strongly that there is going to be an election within the 5-year term. If you look at Article 142 of the Constitution, the president is on for a term of 5 years. I'm just putting this without delegitimizing claims by NASA, just for the record, but just for purposes of demonstration. How is it, Waiga, that NASA supporters are unable to put the leadership to task to explain how we want to navigate around Article 142 that the president serves for a term of 5 years, and that for it to have an election, both the president and deputy president must resign? You get, that reality check might then give you an opportunity to re-engage and then recapture without losing sight of what you want, but then reframe the issues in a manner that is beneficial to your supporters and ultimately the entire country. So that has been a challenge. So what I want to, I'm shifting my focus to these Chapter 15 institutions, the constitutional commissions and independent offices. Where are they? You know, these are sectoral commissions. We have Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Where are they in terms of leveraging on this discussion about use of excessive force? Police officers, and Mr. Wino, if he's watching, he knows that I've been part of the system, part of the people that are trained police officers on observing human rights standards during law enforcement work. Where is the voice of Ken Sicha? You know, when you have NASA speaking and Ken Sicha now adding his voice, it brings some objectivity and a dispassionate approach. Sometimes the government does things that are right. Where is Ken Sicha? Where is NGEK, National Gender and Equality Commission, when women and children are being tear-gassed? These persons with disability, the group that coordinates them, where are they? You know,
I want to trust that they are watching. And
all these people must now begin to weigh in and provide the alternative voice so that we have a sober, dispassionate approach to governance. Most importantly, Waiga, and lastly, we must decide, even now it's not too late, to disinherit the impunity that we had in the electioneering period and of the past, and then adopt a new approach that says, just as we comply with the law in our usual daily activities, that in the political space we'll also privilege a position that requires us to comply within the law and look for solutions within that space.
Fair enough, Sandra.
Thank you. The chicken have come home to roost, and I think we should call what we are seeing and what we are hearing for what it is. What we are dealing with now are ethnic and political militia that we condoned, that we allowed, that we supported, that we facilitated during the political period. What we are seeing now...
What's your definition of militia? Again, it was a big discussion even a couple of weeks ago.
I know. Okay, I could substitute that with criminal groups.
Because if I'm
the activities,
a young person in a county where, for example, no voting took place and I want to go to the street every day, does that make me a militia?
No, that one makes, and I think it's creating that difference that was also very controversial, where you have individuals who are demonstrating and following the law, then those engaging in criminal activities. So what we are seeing now in the various quarters could be called militia or those engaging in criminal activities, and that is what we are seeing now, because we allowed them to flourish during that period. Some of them were even supported to continue with the activities that we are doing. Now, that being said, we should also stop speaking from two sides of our mouth. We should be honest with ourselves, because right now we are calling, and I think it's a script that we've had before. Once we have used them and achieved our purpose, now we are calling for their elimination. And what you're going to see now are policemen now being called on to deal with these groups. You're going to see young men being killed, you're going to see young men being maimed, and nobody's going to raise issues of extrajudicial killing, because right now it's not going to be, it's not going to be politically correct, it's not going to be sexy enough, because right now they have a problem that they want to deal with. So until we are honest with each other, until we've get to a point where we are following the law and you're following the constitution right from the start, then the aftermath of certain decisions we make, we won't need to deal with them.
So the political class use you when they need you,
yes,
and dump you after that. I think that's a little bit of what's coming from my panel. We'll be coming back to this discussion after a short break. But we just want to remind you of what we started this broadcast with. Some sad news out of Salga. 1 person feared dead, or at least confirmed dead. 10 injured after a bus collided head-on with a lorry near the Salga Black Spot on the Nakuru Eldoret Road, close to where 12 people died in a horror crash on Sunday. We are told that this accident happened at 6 a.m. We also know that different organizations have been discussing how to deal with this black spot once and for all. But as to its implementation, we're asking President Uhuru Kenyatta, his administration, of course the county government, how many must die before they take serious action to put in place preventive measures at Salga and at any other black spots? What must the government do to reduce road carnage? Talk to us. 22422 is our SMS line, and on social media as well, Facebook, Twitter at Citizen TV Kenya, and I'll be reading some of your tweets and messages throughout the course of the next hour. But coming up, of course, next week, Kenya prepares for a state function on Tuesday as President Uhuru Kenyatta is sworn in for his second and last term. We'll be discussing some of the big political stories of the week, even as we carry on with my guests here in studio, including a proclamation yesterday by the president that he is tired of watching analysts. I want to hear from them what they think about that. Discussing politics in studio day and night. I'll be posing that question to each of them, and they'll tell me whether they're political analysts or whether they're in the group that he was referring to or not. We take a quick break. We're also monitoring the Kasarani Sports Center, where the chair to the Assumption of Office Committee, who is also the head of public service, Joseph Kinyua, is expected to hold a press briefing anytime now about Tuesday's swearing in of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Expect a bit of that and much more. You're watching Citizen Extra. We're taking a short break now.